Welcome back to another Ask George. This is a segment where I take questions from you guys and I give you my perspective, my knowledge, my insight into them. So this week we have 4 exciting questions, including one that a lot of people have been asking about: quantum computing. Can quantum computers break Bitcoin? So let's start out with that question, and then let's get to the 3 others that a lot of you guys will be interested in hearing about. And if you wanted to submit your own questions, make sure you go to CryptosRUs.com and click on that Ask George button. All right, let's get started.
How concerned should we be about quantum computing compromising Bitcoin?
Okay. So obviously, this is a real concern, I would say. A lot of people have been asking about quantum computers and also about Bitcoin. Bitcoin uses hash 256 or SHA-256. So with the brute force capabilities of quantum computers and their chips, their new chips, we heard about one from Google last year, or maybe the year before, where it was able to solve something, some kind of math equation that would take traditional computers like trillions of years, longer than the lifespan of the universe. And then we heard about Microsoft also coming out with one like a year later. I believe that was last year. And we have made, quantum leaps with chip development. I believe the most powerful one that we have now is about 1,000 qubits. Okay. So, a lot of people obviously want to know, because Bitcoin and every other crypto out there uses some kind of encryption to secure the network, right? When it comes to Bitcoin, SHA-256, as far as I understand, basically there's 2 encryption protocols that secure the network and basically derives private keys from public keys. Everyone has a public key, that's your wallet address. And the private key obviously is how you access it. When you combine the 2, that's how you access your Bitcoin, for example, on the blockchain. Nothing is actually stored in your wallet. Your wallet is just a gateway. It's just like a door into the blockchain, so to speak, so that you can access your crypto. So with that said, because of the enormous hash power, the enormous network that Bitcoin has, it's going to take a lot. With quantum computers, error checking is a big deal. Even though it could do a whole lot simultaneously, it has to error check. Otherwise, you're just getting a lot of false reads. So based on a little research, we have 1,000 qubit chips, and we need to get up to about 20 million, approximately 20 million to 300 million. That's estimated. We need a chip that powerful with really good error checking in order for this quantum computer to be able to basically brute force private keys from public keys and be able to take basically anyone's Bitcoin at that point. Okay, take the million Satoshi Bitcoin, take BlackRock's or Saylor's 600,000 Bitcoin. So it's going to be a while, even though we make crazy advancements every single year. To scale up to that point is going to be probably over a decade. Now, even in a decade, that's pretty fast, right? That's only a couple cycles. So is that a legitimate concern? Well, the developers of Bitcoin, the core developers, or the ones that are trying to, make improvements and make sure that things are good, or even upgrades, the ones that are doing that, they're already thinking about how to mitigate this. Okay, so there's code upgrades, there's things that they can do on the network way before we ever get to that point. So do we really have to worry about quantum computers being able to destroy Bitcoin in 10 years? In my opinion, no, because these developers are working on ways to make the network even more quantum resistant in the future, so that we don't really have to worry about it. And overall, my stance have been this: if quantum computers ever get to a point where, we do have 20 or 30 or 300 million qubits, and they could do a lot, right? There's more things we need to worry about besides Bitcoin. At that point, if we didn't have any quantum resistant or software that fought off quantum brute attacks, then banks, financial institutions, anything could be cracked at that point. Nuclear codes could be cracked at that point, right? Militaries could be overrun. Electric grids could be taken over and hacked. So I think there are a lot of smart people out there that are thinking about this as well, and they're trying to create ways to counter this using quantum computers against quantum computers, right? Using quantum computers to defend our most important systems against the hackers. So, in my opinion, we don't have to worry about this for quite some time. It is a legitimate concern, maybe 5, 10, 20 years down the road, but we have a lot of smart people thinking about this every single day. So I'm not really concerned at this point.
What's up, George? Man, let me tell you, I am a fan of you. I just started taking crypto investing seriously right before this current halving year. I've been paying attention to your videos. I've been holding. I'm still kind of new. I've been holding all throughout this year, man. But I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you for what you're doing. I'm a huge fan of you. I'm a George just like you too. But my question is, one thing that I'm kind of confused about is the big institutions like BlackRock and Grayscale. Everybody is waiting on retail to come into crypto. But I guess the question I have for you is, don't retail buy into the institutions and the institutions buy the Bitcoin? I'm just curious as to if retail are the one that's buying in the institutions, and because the reason why the institutions are buying is because the retail. Does it work like that or no?
Thank you for that. Appreciate the support and the kind words. I think I know where you're going with this. It's almost like a circular logic kind of thing, right? If retail wasn't interested, why would institutions be interested, right? And if institutions are interested, why is more retail not interested? And they should be supplying each other, right? I think that's what you're asking. That's an interesting question. So I guess how I would answer is this. Retail has been, okay, so you got to separate Bitcoin and the altcoins. Bitcoin was created, the white paper came out in 2008, it was released in 2009, and I would argue all the way up until 2024. Okay, so from the release of 2009 to 2024, so that's what, 25 years? I would say Bitcoin has been led by retail. Okay, every single cycle that we had, every single like parabolic run, banana zone, the peaks have been driven by retail. Institutions pay no attention. So if you think about it, right? So if we're going by this logic, well, why would institutions be interested now? Well, it's because they finally woke up and realized, okay, retail has been leading this space. They are actually right about Bitcoin, right? You can't dispute the performance, first of all. Everyone that questioned it, maybe after the first cycle or the second cycle, they just didn't believe, right? The naysayers out there, they just didn't believe. They thought it was like a tulip bubble, like basically a bubble that was waiting to burst. But because of the retail investors, it never did. Even though we went down, the first cycle, we went down 87%. Second cycle, we went down 85%. Third cycle, I believe we went down like 79%. Even with the huge declines, retail always, at least some, kept faith and continued to hodl and DCA, right? So basically for 25 years, Bitcoin, was it 25? Not 25 years. I'm sorry. for 15 years. 15 years. 25 sounds very long, but 15 years, still very long. So basically for 15 years, retail dominated and led this space. That's what prompted institutions to come in, right? If it wasn't for retail, someone like Saylor never would have adopted, right? Even in his recent interview with Jordan Peterson, he's like, he heard of Bitcoin years before. He ignored it because he thought it was a bubble like most people. And then when he wanted to learn more, he actually asked someone on his team who has been in crypto for a long time. And that's what kind of made him get into it. So Larry Fink of BlackRock and all these other guys, Cathie Wood of ARK, you know, they kind of were educated and led by retail. That's why they're in it, right? So retail definitely got the institutions involved. Okay, and now that institutions, they're involved, they're here to stay. They're here to stay. Okay, obviously the long-term holders for Bitcoin have not left. If you look at the metrics, long-term holders, the graph keeps going up. So people that have led Bitcoin, in previous cycles, continue to lead it. You could argue. Okay, they continue to hold on DCA. But now we're supplemented with institutions. Now that they're coming in, they understand, they know there's a demand for it, and ultimately now they also believe the narrative of Bitcoin being a hedge against inflation, a great store of value, and they're all looking at the other use cases for blockchain, right? So from a technology standpoint, they also are starting to adopt and understand why blockchain is so amazing. So the circular logic, it's still in play. Institutions are in because retail interest is there and retail is in. And because institutions are now in, I argue there's more retail that's also coming in, but it's a different type of retail, right? It's a group of retail investors that are investors. The ones that believe long-term, the ones that also believe in protecting their wealth, right? Not the retail investors that are looking to make a quick buck, the ones that are trying to flip, a meme coin for $1 million, right? There's different types of retail investors. But I would argue that the entrance of institutions now also have brought in more retail investors, the ones that are looking to park their money and gain wealth and not get their fiat debased by their governments, right? So that's how would I answer you. So yes, institutions were brought in because of retail, and more retail are now in because of institutions. However, it's like I said at the beginning, it's not the same for alts. The alts are still maturing, they're getting bigger, their base are growing. But there's still a lot of things that's happening right now, and regulations play a big part of that. Institutions will come into the alts. That's why we're starting to hear about ETFs, right? And once they do come into some of these alts, I do think it'll change them also for the better. But it may just take some time. It may not be this year, although I do think we'll probably get a couple ETFs like Spot, Solana, and XRP ETFs. And the rest will probably follow in the years afterwards. So that's kind of how I see it, right? Bitcoin is kind of its own thing. Alts, they're their own thing. Alts are just a lot more immature at this point. And the ones that are in alts, they don't have the diamond hands. And whenever there's any kind of volatility, they just tend to sell it off really quickly. But then they also FOMO in really quickly. So the I guess how to stay encouraged is if you look at previous cycles, toward the tail end, that's when the alts really skyrocketed because people love to FOMO. They don't love to buy low. Most people love to FOMO. So if we do get like a year-end explosion or a parabolic rise for Bitcoin and it carries over into alts, you're going to see a lot of people FOMO really quickly, really fast, and you're going to see things go up really fast as well.
What altcoins are your favorites? I feel like from your videos, I don't get that answer. Do you know what I'm saying? And I love your videos because at the end of the day, it's all about Bitcoin. And that's exactly what I believe in. But I'd love to know, what altcoins do you believe in and why do you believe in them? And I'm not trying to put you in any community or anything like that, but that's kind of my answer, you know, not my answer, my question. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thing being new in the market. But I'm so invested in it. I'm always researching, always looking, and I think all the altcoins that I have mentioned, I think they are important, and I think they're good. But I'd just like to know more about you and the altcoins, and 100% fully behind Bitcoin. Thank you.
So I don't do a lot of my top 5 projects or top 10 project videos because right now it's not altcoin season. It's not the right time. People want to know more about macro and Bitcoin and so forth. But, you know, it should be pretty obvious because I do cover these projects all the time. For example, Solana. I talk about Solana all the time, even in Q&A. So there's the obvious one. I talk about XRP now all the time. Okay, there's another one. And Sui. I even went to their base camp, covered that. I mean, so there are ones that you should notice that I cover more news from a lot more often than others. Avalanche is another one. Okay. ETH, you got to cover because there are a lot of ETH holders. I'm neutral on ETH, but you know I do cover them a lot. And there's various other ones in the space that I cover, you know, from time to time. You know, like AI plays or DePIN plays or DeFi plays. These they're all promising, right? And I think you got to recognize them for what they do. But for me, I concentrate right now primarily on the big caps. Okay, the ones within the top 10 that I feel have a lot of promise and they're not giving up. They're not disappearing. Okay? They have strong leadership and they have a very active community. There's obviously a lot of activity and volume going on. TVL is high. So these are things I'm looking for. And also I look at a macro perspective, like what's happening, like in the US. With the new Genius bill passing the Senate, with the changing SEC and how they view things, you know, not everything is security. So I put big emphasis on American-based projects now. So if I had to choose my top projects, it would be Solana, Ripple, Sui, Avalanche. These would be my top ones. And then you could throw some other ones in there, like for example, ETH, okay? And the ones that help support everything. For example, Uniswap. They're one of the biggest dexes. Jupiter, another one that I really love. Okay, they're from Solana. And there's others out there that show a lot of promise. You mentioned Ondo for RWA. They're definitely a big one. But there's chains too, like basically AVAX and Chainlink. They also support RWA. I think Chainlink is another one that a lot of people overlook. I think they're really great. I think Ondo's a new player in town. Okay. Meme coins. You mentioned Trump. A lot of controversy there. Right now, I don't hold much of any memes. But I think going forward, when the market conditions are correct, I will be buying a lot more memes. I think Pepe is going to be a good hold because it has done very well in the past cycle. I think it's going to do very well this cycle too. Some of the other memes, the bigger memes like Whiff and Bonk, I think they're going to come up. Like the older memes like Doge and Sheep, I think Doge is actually going to do well because of Elon and because of the fan base now. Sheep, I don't really hear a lot about, but maybe they'll do well as well. So I think When the timing is right, I will definitely pick up more memes, but right now it's just not it. Right now, I'm sticking with Bitcoin and some of these big caps alts that have the most users, most utility, great leadership, and a lot of them I just mentioned will be getting their own spot ETF, which I think will bring in institutional investors and help bring in a lot more money into them.
Hey George, my name is Lucas Benjamin. I live in Illinois and I have been following you for 6 to 7 months now. DCA is the winning strategy. I just want to know your thoughts on Maple Finance, aka Syrup. It has really rallied in the last 2 months and I'm curious.
Okay, so this is Maple, and I looked at it for a little bit, and it seems like they're a traditional CeFi lending company. That's what it boils down to. Now, lending companies overall has a really bad rep. I think maybe now not so much, but back in 2022, 2023, obviously very bad rep because of all the Black Swan events that we had. Okay, Celsius, BlockFi, and Voyager, and others. So basically how lending companies work is users like yourself would put down like Bitcoin or ETH or whatever and get yield. And how you would get the yield is the company would then lend it out. Okay. So for example, some kind of whale or institution said, hey, I need to borrow 1 million ETH. Okay. And I'm going to pay you 10% APY or whatever it is. And then, you know, obviously the lending company would keep some of it and then pass on to others to the users. The problem is almost all the ones that did collapse, they didn't have enough collateral on hand. Basically, they lent out more than they had. So when things collapsed, they didn't have enough to pay back. They didn't have enough assets to pay back people. That's why they all collapse. So Maples looks like through their history, they actually survived all that. They survived the last cycle. Now they're still doing the same thing. It's more for institutions. And you can earn yield by providing either Bitcoin, your big blue chips like Ethereum and stuff, some of the smaller projects, and they have their own token, the Syrup token, which you could also earn yield from. So I looked at each one. How users make yield from each one is kind of interesting. So for Bitcoin yield, they even explain it. Basically, they utilize a project called Core. Okay, Core is a project that allows people to stake their Bitcoin and earn Core tokens, and that's how you would earn. But Core itself is self-custody. You don't have to give up your Bitcoin or anything like that. So with Maple, if you're earning this 4 to 6% target APY, basically you're handing it over to them, and then they're using Core to earn that yield, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you could just do that yourself with Core if you wanted to, right? So for the Bitcoin side, it doesn't even make any sense. Now, if you go to blue chips, which is the bigger ones like ETH, for example, and they say Bitcoin and ETH, but basically what they do is exactly what I explained. Institutional people that want to borrow, let's say ETH, they will lend into them and get a percentage, and they share you a percentage of that. Now, they're very careful saying they're 260% over collateralized, meaning that if someone wants to borrow, let's say 10 million worth of ETH, there needs to be like a ton more, right? 260% more in order to borrow. So yeah, so basically they're trying to reassure people that, hey, we have so much collateral, there's no way that even if the price of ETH drops or Bitcoin drops, we're not going to have enough to pay back people, right? That's basically what it means. So they're offering 7% APY, and then they state it out. And then they have one for high yield, which is 9.6%, which includes some of the other crypto, not just Bitcoin and ETH. It seems like they have a few others in there, and that's why they're offering bigger percentages, because the institutions that want to borrow them are willing to pay more. And this has 381% collateral. Okay, and then they have something called Syrup USDC, which is their own. It's not available for US people. Syrup has a 5% emission rate, so a lot of that is given. And then also compounding that with some of the other things I talked about, that's how they're able to give a little bit more. Okay. So overall, what are my thoughts about this? Me personally, I just don't see a need for this, and I still think there's a risk involved, even though they survived the last cycle. You know, if you go try to get Bitcoin yield, there's plenty of companies that offer that natively. You don't have to go through go through Maple, Blue Chips, and others. You know, you're still taking a risk. You basically have to put down your assets. They lock it in. They give you a yield. If it goes below a certain point, you got to put in more collateral, and they lend that out. Even though they're very, very, very collateralized, I don't know. Just to me, because of the last cycle, I myself got burned. I know a lot of people do. I just don't trust it as much. They say they have 2.32 billion under management, and it seems like they have Coinbase as a partner and Circle as a partner. You know, that may explain why they've been going up, because of the Genius bill, because how hot Circle is, how hot Coinbase is. Maybe the reason why, that kind of explains it. But the overall working of this project is just not one that I'm really interested in. So, all right, guys, that's it for today's Ask George. It's actually quite long, I know, but hopefully you guys have nothing to do on this Saturday. So enjoy this, and I will continue to do more of these every Saturday. So make sure you submit your questions on CryptosRUs.com and click on that Ask George button. All right? Have a good one, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.